I don't know why, but for some reason I forgot what my clap was. That was so bizarre. Anyway, hi guys, it's me, Shaw360, and we are doing chapter 3 of our Shine Book Club session. Chapter 3 is the best chapter I've read so far. I've only read 3 chapters, so that's really great that the latest chapter is the best chapter because it means that the rest of this reading should go by fairly quickly if it continues to get better and better and better. So let's just take it as this book having a clumsy start, but then like really making up for it a little bit later. So, chapter 3 starts with a really endearing kind of antidote about Rachel growing up in America. And basically, the story is that Rachel says she didn't know she was Korean until way, way later in life. And not necessarily like she grew up being lied to, more like she thought she was like any other kid until a traumatic event happened that reminded her that she is different than the other kids. So she talks about growing up, there was another little Asian girl at her school who was Chinese. And that little girl and her were constantly being considered twins, I guess, or people would get them confused. So confused that she actually got hurt at school. And when another Asian lady walked into the building, they told Rachel, hey, your mom is here. And at that point, she realized, like, wow, white people actually can't see the difference between Asian people. And she talked about, going to school dressed up as Hermione from the Harry Potter franchise for Halloween and everybody trying to convince her, no, you're Cho Chang. And so I thought that was a really great thing to put inside this story because she says that that inciting incident of being confused for the other Asian girl in her school, made her cry, and her mother took her home and played a bunch of K-pop videos for her to like let her get over the fact that, yeah, they might not know the difference between different Asian people, but there's a whole world out there where we are our own superstars, where we are very much differentiated, where we are glamorous and we are celebrated, and we are definitely, we are the culture rather than something interesting or exotic. And that's something that I'm really glad that Jessica put in this book because I think that's one of the things that we forget a lot about K-pop and why K-pop means so much to so many different people. I mean, K-pop means a lot to me because when I first got into K-pop, it was a bonding agent between me and my daughter. It was something that we could share that no one else shared with us. Also, it was a chance for me to have popular, colorful, beautiful music introduced into her life without some of the vulgarities of popular radio at the time. But I imagine if you're an Asian kid growing up in America or growing up in Europe where you're not the majority, and then you see K-pop and you see the variety of appearances and you see how cool these people are and how celebrated they are and how that is their mainstream, how it could make K-pop feel not just like an escape, but like something to aspire to, something to want to grow up to be. And I think that's really beautiful that they put that in this book. So I was really glad to have that. So the beginning of this chapter, she has that antidote, and then she starts talking about heading on her way to the trainee house that she snuck out of her house for in order to be able to do the training. And she calls her friends who we met in chapter 2 to let them know that she lied to her mom and said she was going to their house to do the training. Now, one thing I'm going to say, Jessica, I just want to talk to you real quick. I realize that this is a book that is very much based out of your personal experience, and I almost want to feel like maybe your target audience is people who live in Asia, because there were a couple of references in this chapter that I absolutely did not get. Like, I thought that the white pizza bacon grilled cheese was tough. She talks about going to the GS25 to get a Pocari Sweat. I know. A lot of people who watch my channel who are into K-pop and have been for a really long time, they're familiar with like a GS25. We know that that's like the Korean equivalent of a 7-Eleven, but maybe without the gas pumps. But certain little things like what brand something is, I had never heard of a Pocari Sweat. I'm sorry, I just had never heard of it before. I had to look it up on Google to figure out what the hell it was. So that was one of those things where I'm like, okay, uh, that could have used like a little maybe asterisk and then an explanation at the bottom of the page. And then there's a scene after she gets off the train where she runs into Jason and she says he's wearing Adder Error. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm not the most fashionable person in the world, so maybe that's why I don't know what Adder Error is. I looked it up. It's a Seoul based fashion collective. So it's like a brand that's not really very popular over here in America. It's very, very popular, very chic, high end in Korea. There's no problem with that. I'm not saying it's anything wrong, but I feel like for some things that are definitely more localized, it wouldn't have been a bad idea just to put a little footnote to explain what it is. Not because I think that she doesn't deserve to be able to make things that are super localized. I think that that's part of the charm of any book is having things that maybe you're not accustomed to, and then you're like, oh, I want to figure out what that is. It's just, again, like I said, it pulled me out of the moment because I had to get out my phone and Google to try to figure out what the fuck are we talking about here. But anyway, she gets her Pocari Sweat, gets on the bus, runs into an old lady who asked if she can have her empty Pocari Sweat bottle, and then calls her cute. She's like, ipida. So after that, oh, also the Hangul, she does the westernized Hangul here. So she has people talking to her in Korean, and then it's like written so that it's phonetic. That, why did that happen? Okay, so let me tell you why this is a weird thing to me. I have assumed throughout this entire time that I'm reading this book that everyone is speaking in Korean, and the reason I'm reading it in English is because otherwise I would not be able to read this book. So why is it that when she gets on the bus and the old lady is talking to her, the old lady is not only speaking Korean to Rachel, but her Korean is written out phonetically in the pages instead of it just being an old lady saying, "Are you done with your bottle? Can I have it?" And her saying, "Here you go, Grandma." And she's like, "Oh, thank you. You're so cute. Oh, you're welcome." Like, why wouldn't that have been written in English instead of that particular passage being written in Korean? Because, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming that everyone in chapter one was speaking Korean when they were doing the interview, when they were insulting Rachel, when they were having during chapter two when they had the trainee session. Like, I feel all of this was spoken in Korean. That the only time things were spoken in English is when Rachel was maybe talking to her dad at the boxing gym or when she was talking to her mom at home. So I really don't understand why that particular interaction was put into Korean as if they were speaking a foreign language. But that's a nitpick. That's a nitpick. So anyway, Rachel has put on these pajamas and has on a sweater and a pair of leggings underneath her pajamas. And as she's walking towards the training house, she realizes like, oh yeah, I need to change out of my pajamas before I go in there. So she ducks behind a bush and starts changing out of her pajama top. And as she's changing out of her pajama bottoms, she trips and falls in front of Jason Lee. Now, something that she did with this that I really, really like. And the things that I really like about this book are stuff that I'm sure she did not anticipate somebody really clinging on to. When she describes Jason, she says something I find super interesting about him because it says a lot about the way that Korean people feel about Koreans that are not from Korea circumstantially, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to read this paragraph about Jason, and then you tell me how you feel if you feel the same way. She says, "You're Jason Lee," I stammer as I struggle to my feet. Even before shooting to starting with DB, Jason was famous for his YouTube K-pop covers. Kind of sounds like Jay Park a little bit, right? Like Jay Park was a K-pop idol. Then he went back to America, fumbled for a bit, and then he got famous doing like Korean covers of American songs, and that's what brought his career back. And then he joined Korean SNL, and then anyway, I'm digressing. Jason was famous for his YouTube K-pop covers. After one of his videos went viral, Mr. No himself flew to Toronto and convinced Jason to move to Seoul. That actually reminds me of the story of that one trainee for NCT who got famous on TikTok and got recruited from Japan to be part of NCT. I'm still digressing, sorry. Who was convinced Jason to move to Seoul, where he quickly became Korea's most beloved K-pop star. Being half white, half Korean actually works for him here, with everyone from preteens to stalker fans to Ajumas praising him for his big double-lidded eyes and olive complexion, as if he handpicked his genes himself. Somehow his foreigner status gets him voted Korea's sexiest K-pop star, while mine gets me mandatory Korean culture lessons. I love the fact that Jason Lee is half white. I don't love the fact that he's half white because I'm just in love with biracial people. That's not the reason why. I love that he's half white because it's something that I have said about a couple of different people in K-pop, and I feel like I've been really like mean-spirited when I said it, but I don't mean it in a mean-spirited way, but I kind of do. Somi. Somi is half Canadian, but we could just call her half white, I guess. And Korea celebrates her looks. I'm not even sure if Korea actually recognizes her talent because they are so incredibly besotted with her looks. Her big doe eyes, her super fair skin, the fact that she doesn't really have any standout Korean features. And to the point that her looks have been kind of pushed forward more than her actual musical talent. Like, I was in the car with Stephanie a couple of weeks ago, no, probably 3 weeks ago, and What You Waiting For came on the K-pop playlist we were listening to. And just listening to the song, I asked Stephanie to listen to it, tell me what she thinks, because Stephanie doesn't listen to K-pop as often as I do. She's like, this song's okay. And I'm like, she kind of sounds like a Disney girl, this person singing, doesn't she? She's like, yeah, kind of reminds me of like the Disney kids when they're asked to sing songs. And I'm like, this is Somi who's signed to YG. She's like the new YG girl. She's like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. But I say all that to say, I've been critical of Somi because I felt that she didn't have solo star energy. I feel like she's definitely got a great personality for variety. I feel like she's a beautiful girl, like I said, but I've never felt from her with her music that she had solo star potential for music. I always felt like she's a girl who does much better in a group. She could be the leader of a group, but she does much better in a group. And I feel like with her being half white has really been the key to her success. Not just because of her beauty, but because, like most of the world, there's a little bit of kind of imperial supremacy going on here. Yes, I understand that with Korea being such a homogenous nation, that people who are biracial definitely get the short end of the stick because they're kind of seen as outsiders. And even Somi herself talks about when she was a child, she got picked on a lot for being half white. And so she felt like she was kind of an outsider even when she was going to school. But Korea is now operating on a global platform. I mean, Samsung, LG, there's so many Kia. There's so many Korean companies that are operating on a worldwide scale. And when Korea has companies operating on this level and they're trying to export themselves all around the world, they've been forced to integrate with the rest of the world. And so that kind of imperialist supremacy that's been taught to the rest of the world hasn't escaped Korea. And when Korea has fashion campaigns or they have big CFs that don't involve idols, they employ a lot of white models. And a lot of K-pop idols will tell you that their favorite star or their ideal type is a white person. Like for years, Taemin talked about how much he liked this one white actress with these big bug eyes. I can't remember her name now. And then he was like in love with the girl who plays Hermione for quite a while too. But a lot of them will say that that type of white woman is their ideal type. And it's usually a white woman with like really big eyes, really thin, really pale. It's not usually like a Sofia Vergara type that they're talking about. So I appreciated that she mentioned how him being half white makes him almost like somebody that people give a pass to, whereas she's Korean. Like her mother is Korean, her father is Korean. She grew up in America, but she's Korean. But her being in Korea even though she is Korean by ethnicity, she is seen as somebody who needs to be taught how to be Korean. Whereas Jason, being half white, he doesn't have to be taught to be Korean. They're just glad he came to the party. And everything he does is cute, and he's just seen as, oh my gosh, how precious, how sweet. Look at him acclimating so well. Oh my gosh, aren't we lucky to have him? And so I really thought that was interesting that she put that in there, because it's kind of a sly nod to the fact that there's so many different layers in terms of how you're treated, not just as an idol, but as a person in Korea based on your background. Whether your background is that you are a mixed person, if you're mixed with white, you do really well. If you're mixed with a person of color, you're looked down upon. If you are Korean, but you're foreign raised, you're looked down upon. Like, it's amazing all the different layers that people have to contend with the general public before we even get down to like their role in society or what they're doing there in the first place. So I thought that was really good that she put that there. So Jason, of course, is immediately besotted with Rachel. That's the second time I've said that word today. That's exciting. He finds her funny. He finds her beautiful. He says as much. He says he finds her beautiful. And they have this kind of playful, flirty thing going on. And he's a bit cocky. At one point, she's like, I know you. He's like, oh, really? How do you know me? And she is about to say she knows him because of him having a musical trust. And then he's like, voice of an angel, body of a god. And it's like, okay, all right, friend. But anyway, they immediately have some chemistry. And she's just like, okay, I'm not going to stay in this moment because I'm still embarrassed that you caught me tripping. But it's cool, I met Jason Lee. Hey. So she goes to the party. Well, she goes to the trainee house to do this extra training. And when she gets there, she realizes it is a party. And it is not just a party with trainees, it is a party with other people who are signed to the label, including the Next Boys. And she's embarrassed because she thought that she was actually going to be training. Like, even though she left the house with her outfit underneath her pajamas, the outfit she had on was like a sweater, some leggings, and then she had her hair in ponytails. So she wasn't prepared for a party. So she gets there, and of course the mean girls show up, Mina and Lizzie and Unji, and are like, ah, look at you. Those pigtails are so schoolgirl. How adorable. I'm like, oh, look at you with your clothing. That's so quaint. Meanwhile, the description of the outfits these girls are wearing, I have to ask you young people because it's been years since I've been to a party. Have any of you been to a party in the last 2 years? Because if you have, let me know if this sounds like a realistic outfit for just a beer and like drinks party. Mina is wearing sparkly stacked heels with a mini skirt and a crop top. And Lizzie and Unji are wearing skinny jeans and tiaras. Tiaras. Do you know what a tiara is? It's a crown. A tiara. Both of them wearing tiaras. The only occasion that I have ever worn a tiara at was the day I got married. And I had a tiara on because it was holding my veil in place. And it was like a mini tiara. It was basically a comb. It was a comb that had a little like princessy shape to it. I have never gone to a house party in a tiara. I've never gone to a house party in sparkly heels. I can't imagine being at a house party in sparkling heels, a mini skirt, and a crop top. Like, what? What kind of party are people wearing skinny jeans and mini skirts? I don't know. That pulled me out of it too, because apparently Mina showed up wearing like a sister outfit. Like, she had a blown out hair, crop top, mini skirt, stacked heels. What? So anyway, they take a little moment to rag on Rachel about how she looks. And just as Rachel is about to, I guess, respond to their ragging, here comes Jason Lee, arm around Rachel, like, hey kid, she's with me. Making it seem like they have a much closer relationship, which, thank you, Jason, for trying to rescue her from her public humiliation, I guess. But I mean, it's one of those deals where like, this is just going to make them hate me more, you know? So anyway, they're hugged up on the couch. quite by accident, I guess. And Rachel's flirting with Jason because why not? And I have to admire Rachel in a way because, like, Jason comes and scoops her up from all these mean girls, and she immediately proceeds to start flirting with him. And I don't know about you, I'm kind of shy. Like my whole like little horoscope, not horoscope, but my personality thing, the MBTI. I think I have ISFP or ISJP, one of the ones. I don't know. I have to look it up. It's in my email. Anyway, I am an introvert. I would immediately use him pulling me out of the fray as an excuse for me to leave. Like I would have gone back home and I just had to tell my mom the truth. I would not have stayed there. But she instead is like, oh, well, one favor deserves another and starts flirting with him. And then at one point, his friend who's in the group, Minjin, shows up and she has this chicken in her purse. When I read this excerpt without any context, I'm like, what the fuck is chicken doing in her purse? She had chicken in her purse because she told her mom she was going to go do a college entrance prep with her two rich friends from her high school. And her mom told her, well, here, take this chicken with you to share. So that's why she had chicken in her purse, which thank goodness, because otherwise I'm like, what the fuck is this girl doing with chicken in her purse? So she passes the chicken to Minjin. He's like, oh, this Rachel girl's all right. Then all of a sudden, Minna's like, attention, it's trainee time. Everybody who's not a trainee has to go, especially the boys. Y'all gotta get the fuck up out of here. So the guys all leave. Rachel stays. Mina gets out champagne glasses. And she's like, come on, Rachel, we're all toasting now. I don't know about you, but I'm the type of person where if I didn't see you make the drink, I'm not drinking it. Straight up. Unless it's like got the bottle cap screwed on tight and I pop that thing when I open it. I'm not taking no damn drinks from anybody that I don't see you pour, and especially if I don't like you. If I don't like you and you're trying to pour me drinks, the fuck am I gonna take it? No, I'm sorry. But anyway, they show up with these champagne glasses and they pass a glass of champagne to Rachel. Like, come on, Rachel, let's have fun. So Rachel drinks this whole champagne glass and all of a sudden she's woozy. And as she's woozy, she hears, now you're really in for it. Well, I'll read it because it's like over the top sinister, but I feel like if I don't read it to you, you won't get a feel for how like over the top sinister it is. I fall deeper into the couch, my head growing fuzzier with each second. I see Mina's blurry features leaning in close to mine. It worked! She'll never be chosen now. Chosen? What is she talking about? Earth to Rachel. You look like you could use some fresh air, princess. Her voice swirls slowly around me, but I can't find the energy to respond. Unji and Lizzie circle around me, laughing and sipping from their glasses. Pretty little Princess Rachel. Even Mr. No can't save you now, Lizzie gloats. I hear it all like I'm at the bottom of a swimming pool. Somebody says something, and I start laughing too, uncontrollably, although I have no idea why. Come on, princess, let's dance. Unji is pulling me to standing, and I'm still laughing. Or she is. Or both. I'm not sure. Through my lashes, which suddenly seem heavy, I see Mina hovering not too far away, but not dancing. Her phone is pointed in my direction, and she's wearing an evil smirk. Unji spins me around, and the room spins with us into a sea of sparkling lights and laughing faces. Let me say this. That was so cartoonishly evil. Like, so it just really, you didn't have to beat us over the head with their bad intentions. You could have been a little bit more subtle about that. But again, Rachel, I have to talk to you for a minute. Are you dumb? Why would you take a drink from somebody who does not like you? She doesn't like you. She doesn't like you. Straight up, she does not like you. Why would you take a drink from her? Why would all of a sudden you'd be pally around enough to take a drink from her? I don't understand it. If you didn't want to drink it, you could have easily just accidentally poured it on the ground. You could be like, oh, thank you for that. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to spill it. Oh, I'm such a klutz. Tell you what, I'm going to go grab another drink. I'll be right back. That's how you get away with that. Like, take this as a tip, ladies and gentlemen. That's how you get away with that. Why would you take this drink from this person who hates you? Who hates you? I don't get it. I don't understand it. But obviously, they plan on recording her and sending this recording to Mr. No to embarrass her, to get her kicked out of the program, which This is the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a super evil person. I try not to be. I really do try to stomp on my worst impulses, but I always think about what the worst case scenario should be. If you were to drug Rachel and you really wanted to get her in trouble, why wouldn't you drug her while the boys are there? Okay, okay. Hear me now. It's a really shitty thing to do. I'm not saying that anyone should do this. I recognize how incredibly evil this is. But if I wanted to get rid of my competition and I wanted to videotape her wiling out, and I wanted to make sure that the president of my company never lets this person back into the building, why wouldn't I drug her while Jason is there, have her giggly and falling all over Jason, videotape her giggly and falling all over Jason, and then give that video to Mr. No, and then he would have to get rid of Rachel to protect Jason? Like, am I the only person who feels that way? I realize that's a super evil thing to do because it can get out of hand, and Jason could be like, "Oh, I got a giggly drunk girl in my arms. Let me go ahead and take advantage of it." But again, Mina apparently is a person evil enough to drug somebody. If you're evil enough to drug somebody, you might as well just go whole hog. You've already committed to the crime. But I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next chapter. I did not read ahead. I'm trying to be really good about these book club readings, and I'm trying to read it as we go along instead of jumping ahead, because I want to be able to react to things the same way you're reacting to things. But I feel like for me, if I was going to take the most advantage and make her the most persona non grata, I would have videotaped her endangering the reputation of one of the company's stars. Because at the end of the day, Rachel is an unknown entity. Yes, she could end up being super popular with the public and they might make her a superstar, but Jason already is a superstar. And if you have to protect one or the other, are you going to put your neck out for somebody who hasn't proven themselves? Or are you going to put your neck out for your star who's bringing in the cash? I mean, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to understand Jason is the one you're going to protect. So Rachel would be out on the street, her K-pop dreams are over, goodbye girl, whatever. So I just don't understand why that's not the option that Mina would come up with. But maybe this is just to prove to us that Mina is stupid. Maybe that's what this is about. But yeah, that's where I'm at the end of chapter 3. But this chapter really was the best chapter. Her background and what got her into K-pop. I love the little paragraph that they had about Jason and his background. I like that the plot is actually moving around. That's really good. But I hate that we left this chapter on a cliffhanger and that it's just so cartoonishly evil. I mean, at the end of the day though, you can't feel like this video is going to have too much impact, the video they're taking, because I mean, it's just chapter 3 of many, many chapters. So obviously she's not going to be put out of the scene, otherwise the book would be over. But yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Do you guys have any questions or anything you want me to discuss about this chapter? I've been doing these book reviews and it's literally me talking at you guys instead of me taking your questions or any of your commentary. So leave me something to talk about. Um, yeah, leave me something to talk about. I already showed you that my penis has a face, so I can't show you that right now. I can show you this bag of sunflower seeds I got, though, because it's pretty cool. I got this bag of sunflower seeds at my local Asian market, and I thought that they were Chinese at first because of the writing on it, but they're not. They're from Thailand, and they're extremely bizarre because they have kind of like a sweet powder on them. You can get flavored sunflower seeds and they put the seasoning on the outside of the shell. This has something very similar, and I thought at first it would be salty, but it's not. It's sweet. Okay. Sky Sapphire says, I find it scary that a kid like Mina would even think of drugging someone, even if she hated Rachel. I mean, I agree. And that's the reason why I say, if you're going to be that evil that you're going to drug somebody, you might as well be whole hog evil instead of kind of putting your foot in the mix. You know, I can understand though why Rachel well, why Mina would do something like that to Rachel. And I'm not saying that Rachel deserves it. I would never say that Rachel deserves it. I don't think anybody deserves to be drugged. But I can get where Mina would come from in terms of her resentment of Rachel. Here, Mina is super rich, well taken care of because of the money. So, like, her looks are all, they're done as well as they possibly can be. She's a lead dancer, so she must have some kind of skill. But she's still not the favorite of Mr. No. Even though Mr. No is her father's friend, she's still not his favorite. His favorite is this girl who doesn't even train as much as everybody else, doesn't live in the training house like everybody else, and seems to be like nothing but a dancing and singing machine who doesn't really have any kind of personality, so to speak. So I could definitely see why Mina would hate this girl. And, they're also talking about the fact that, and it was mentioned in chapter 1, it's been 7 years at this point since they debuted a girl group. So everyone's a little bit desperate. Mina and Rachel are the same age. Rachel talked about earlier in another chapter that she was reaching the age to where she probably won't be able to debut soon because there's a prime age for K-pop girls. So if Mina is that same age as Rachel, she's probably also thinking like, I have a limited amount of time before it's too late for me to debut, and this girl is my closest rival, or she's the number one favorite of the company. So I've got to differentiate myself, or I've got to sabotage her in order to be able to prop myself up because I'm desperate to make sure that I am the one that gets chosen. So on the one hand, I can totally rationalize what Mina has done, but that does not make it right. It absolutely does not make it right. Okay, so after that, Esther G says, I wonder if this actually happens among trainees of big companies. One of the Oneness members said he left YG because his friends betrayed him. I do think that things like that happen. I don't know necessarily about like getting drugged at a party, but I absolutely do feel like K-pop idols sabotage each other in the name of trying to get ahead. Prime example, you guys remember, fuck, what is the name of that group? I have that album and I cannot remember the name of the group. Okay, the last season of Produce X, there was two guys that were from a group that was like a television group, and they were on Produce, and one of them got all the way to the end, but he didn't make it to the final group. And so because he and the other guy from the group made it kind of up, the company said, okay, we're going to do a subunit with just you two to popularize on your Produce X experience. Well, they disbanded the entire group except for those two guys. So one of the former members exposed the Finsta account of the kid that made it all the way to the end that showed him making out with his girlfriend. So, I mean, yeah, trainees and idols do this shit all the time. They look at their careers. No, the kid didn't make it to X1. He got out before X1, but he was on Produce X. And what is his name? Because him and Tuzi were always competing for main vocalist, and he always beat out Tuzi every single time. Even the one time that Tuzi was asked to put him on the team, he's like, I promise if you put me on your team, I'll just sing backup. As soon as he gets on the team, like, I want main vocal. Like, that guy was an asshole, honestly. But anyway, yeah, his teammates who got disbanded are like, oh, well, if we're playing dirty like that, let me show you where your idol is not actually your idol. And it's shitty. Yes, Yubin. Thank you, Esther. You got it. So it's shitty that happened, but absolutely that happens. Same thing with Jay Park. I'm not saying that anybody in 2PM outed Jay Park's MySpace page, but you have to know that somebody knew about Jay Park's MySpace and they waited until the opportune time to let that shit out. And it also happens in ways that we don't see. For instance, Produce X, the JYP trainee who got kicked out of JYP before the show even began, and they had to edit his ass out of the show. That kid, something terrible must have happened that somebody exposed before he had a chance to get to the top. And we don't know what that terrible thing is, but it was enough to to get him not only off the show but out of the company. So yeah, I think that absolutely like blackmail and shit like that happens all the time in K-pop. Another prime example of it, and it's the worst example I guess we could use here. Han So-hee. Like, come on. Here she is, a trainee, but has never debuted, comes from a wealthy family, knows all these different people, hangs out with your oppa. But because she doesn't actually have what it takes to make it all the way there, she decides to engage in a little bit of, I don't want to say trickery, but a little bit of social espionage in order to cement her place amongst the stars, if you will. So she's like the eternal trainee, but has access to all your faves because she's got drugs, she's got money. And then when the time comes to go to jail herself or possibly implicate somebody else to save her ass, what does she do? And time again, she goes ahead and she exposes somebody else to save her own fucking ass. Even if the thing she has to say is useless and ends up turning out to be nothing, she still says it anyway because she's a fame hungry whore who doesn't have her own talent, and that's why she never debuted in a group. Because let's put it this way, everybody says that she almost debuted in GFriend. I don't believe it. I think the only reason she even had a chance to try to debut with GFriend is because at the time that GFriend was debuting, their company wasn't as big as it is now. But her daddy, her family is rich. Why wouldn't they just pay to get her to debut? They weren't willing to do that. They were like, you go ahead and play your idol games, but we're not going to spend too much money behind this. And obviously, the amount of money that her family was offering to support her idol dreams wasn't enough for her to actually make it onto a team. So, yeah, do I believe that trainees do some foul shit like this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Han So-hee was taping her well, not taping, but she was saving her Kakao Talk conversations with idols just in case she got caught up in the mix. Does that not tell you that there's some real chicanery and some real foolishness going on behind the scenes? I absolutely believe it. I absolutely believe it. Do you think this book will affect Girls' Generation members like hate, cancel culture, etc.? No. And the reason I don't think this book is going to affect Girls' Generation is because this book has been out now for like a couple of weeks. If it was going to affect Girls' Generation, it would have by now. I think the thing that has affected Girls' Generation the hardest is the Kakao Talk scandal, to be honest with you, because was it Yuri's brother that was involved with that? I think it was Yuri's brother. And the public has not forgotten that. And they have been like, you need to come out and denounce your brother and his horrible actions. And that hasn't happened. And I think that that is something that has affected Girls' Generation tremendously. I think they absolutely could do another project together if they want to, but that's going to be a part of doing interviews and doing promotions that people are going to say, like, what's going on with this deal over here? So, yeah. I don't think that this book is going to affect Girls' Generation, because if it was going to, it would have. Next. It's well known that SM trainees act like they're at a survival show at all times, so they don't even bother going on to produce. SM trainees would never go on to produce because, like, well, take that back. Regular SM trainees wouldn't go on produce. SM trainees who are part of like the subsidiary SM groups actually did go on produce. On Produce X, I remember Yuri. He was the one. He was like on the SM modeling side of things. And he was also in Luna's Free Somebody video too. So like he actually was a legit at one point, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, he went on Produce X. So you can't say SM doesn't send anybody to Produce X, because they absolutely do. Man, speaking of Yuri, for some reason he came up on my Explore page on Instagram yesterday, and I'm like, he doesn't. I think he tried to debut with a group, but it didn't go anywhere because like he's when he performs. He actually should quit trying to perform. If I was Yuri, I would absolutely stop trying to perform. So Tangentville, Park Yuri, he was on Produce X he was from the group of SM people that they sent who were not part of like SM Main. They were like SM modeling. And he did okay for a while on the show, but then he got out like in the middle stages. And he had a huge following, number one, because he was attractive, because he models. But number two, he speaks really good English and he speaks Russian. So he had a huge fan base of like Russian fans and international fans, plus a couple of Korean fans, right? So he went out there performing Love Shot every chance he could get and trying to build up a fan base. But then when he debuted, like by then, Produce X was embroiled in all the scandal about the ring and stuff, and people just kind of forgot about him. So it didn't really go that great. But the kid is really good looking, and he's super cocky, but he actually has a kind of like charismatic personality. Like he's somebody that when you see him amongst people, you can't help but stare at him because he's always doing something interesting with his face. And also he's just like super good looking and he has a sense of humor. I don't know why he doesn't try acting. Like honestly, if I were him and I was smart, I would go into acting. That's what you need to be doing. Or or, since you speak Russian, leave Korea behind and go debut in Russia. Because apparently Russia has really latched on to K-pop. And you could go to Russia and you could like get famous on Russian YouTube for doing Russian covers of K-pop songs and eventually like have a whole career there. There's tons of money there just waiting to be taken. Why spend your time and your efforts on trying to be an idol in Korea? Like that's not where the move is. That's not where the money is right now. Like I think that there's this misunderstanding that a lot of people have about I'm going to be the next BTS. No one's going to be the next BTS. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, no one's going to be the next BTS because every group brings a little something different to the table. Everybody has their own lane, and that's how you become successful is by having your own lane. But trying to start having your own lane in Korea is really tough because the market is super saturated. If you're not from a big company, you're not going to have the same kind of international push as everybody else is going to have. The market is small. But there's a lot of emerging markets that want K-pop of their own. Thailand, for instance, they have this group called SB5, which is I watch a lot of Boys Love. They were in this Boys Love show called Two Moons, and the company that manages those boys were like, we're going to make y'all into a boys group. And they're actually doing well. They're getting endorsements and everything in Thailand because their whole boy group is modeled after K-pop. China is starting to get into the K-pop game. I'm currently on episode 4 of The Untamed. There's 49 episodes. So it's going to take me a while to make my way through it. But The Untamed, super huge. And it has 2 former K-pop idols on the show. They play the leads of the show. I think both of them were K-pop idols at some point. Anyway, K-pop. Lay, fucking Tao, Luhan, Chris. K-pop is popular in China. See what I'm saying? Russia, they sent homegirl to Korea to go be a K-pop idol. K-pop is popular. So why not be the only Korean K-pop adjacent person who's in Russia delivering authentic K-pop in Russian? Why wouldn't you do that? I would, but I'm also about this money, so I don't take my advice. Next, Woojin from Stray Kids clearly gotten caught by JYP. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean the regular ones. LOL. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, at the end of the day, being a K-pop idol and being a successful K-pop idol, let's put it that way, is like winning the lottery. What BTS has done, what Blackpink has done, what Twice has done, what Monsta X has done, don't take it lightly. It's not a light thing. It's not an easy thing. It's incredible. It is a 1 in a million shot to do the things that they have done. It's not easy. And that's the reason why somebody who enjoys K-pop and is a multi-stan, it makes me really upset when I see people pick on smaller groups as if their accomplishments mean nothing because they're not a Blackpink or they're not a Twice or they're not a BTS. Like there's people who on the accomplishments of Red Velvet because they're not accomplishing the same thing as Blackpink. But even to be at a status that a Red Velvet is at, again, like winning the fucking lottery, it's one in a million. It doesn't happen to a majority of people who, not even, it doesn't happen out of one in 1,000 kids who train to be a trainee. It doesn't happen. So, do I believe that people pull shenanigans and blackmail and dirt and everything else behind the scenes? Yes, because people still play the lottery here in America. Even though the chances of you making it are like one in a million, there's still that one. And people are willing to do anything to make it to that one. And because of that, you're going to continue to have people who are getting hurt by K-pop. You're going to continue to have people who are mortgaging their dreams for K-pop. And you're just going to continue to have problems and have an industry that can exploit people. One of the worst things about the fact that BTS has become so incredibly popular is that you have companies out there that are preying on the dreams of these young people in an economy that's not doing as well as it should be doing and saying, I know a way for you to take care of all your problems. Be the next BTS. TXT can't even be the next BTS. Let's be real. But with them being so incredibly popular, the goalpost has changed. It used to be just being popular in Korea was enough. It used to be if you could make a way in Japan, it was enough. It used to be if you had some Chinese fans, it was enough. Now it is you have to conquer the West. And that just cannot be achieved by everybody. And that doesn't make anything wrong with you. It doesn't make you a flop or a failure. But again, mortgaging your dreams on this shit, I feel much like Rachel's mom. Maybe you need a plan B. Maybe you need a plan B. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of chapter 3 of this book. And you will see me again, I guess Monday. Yeah, Monday at some point. We'll be doing chapter 4. Hopefully, we'll find out what it is they were able to blackmail Rachel with. And we'll just keep going from there. But I thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.